Well, in my junior high school, I was the only black student.
In the entire school?
In the entire school. And I'm a baby boomer, so it was a big school. And so in my high school, there were in my graduating class, I think in my class, there were 600 students. And there might have been 30 black students. And there were maybe 60 Hispanic students. So there were
more Hispanic students than there were
yes.
black students. What about your upbringing in Utah made you aware that you could become a state senator and mayor-elect?
Well, I think that I grew up as Baptist. I grew up in the Baptist church, and in our community, we had a strong sense of pride around our religion. And our religious tenets basically teach us that we are God's children and that we can do whatever it is that we feel we can achieve. And so I always believed that. And so I just operated from that no matter what I saw. I actually saw mistreatment as an African-American child in Utah, but then I saw white children who were poor mistreated too, so that I recognized that people mistreat people, and you have to rise above it. The expectation is for everyone that you kind of find out who you are inside and you operate from that.
That's interesting because I was raised by my great-grandmother, and that's basically what she told me. I couldn't come with an excuse that I couldn't do something because, for whatever reason, she didn't want to hear it. But you were raised by your grandmother.
I was raised by my grandmother. My mother was a teenager. She was a teenage mom, and my grandmother was in her second marriage. When she became pregnant, she was asked to leave the home, so she went to San Francisco to live with an aunt.
Your mother was asked to leave the home?
Yes, my birth mother. Mm-hmm. She went to San Francisco to live with an aunt, and so I was born in San Francisco. And she sent letters back saying that she really didn't feel she could take care of me. And so her mother, who I call my mother now, basically sent her sister by the railroad to pick me up, put me in a basket, and this is all biblical, Paul.
Right.
And took me back.
The female version of the Moses story.
Yes, right.
And the railroad was just the Nile.
Right, that's right.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
In my mind, that's sort of how I programmed it. And I felt, and I was taken to Utah to live with my grandparents. And I lived with them until I was 5, at which time I was adopted.
And you were adopted by them?
By them.
Ah, okay.
And so which was really very good. And so I really love the fact that grandparents in our town sort of step up to the plate,
so
because I've had that.
So you knew the story from your grandmother?
I knew the story, yes.
Did you feel any greater sense of, because of that, start, did you feel any greater sense that you had to achieve things as you grow up, like middle school, high school? Did you feel like you owed it to your grandparents or to yourself to be somebody special?
Well, I always felt that I was special because in my mind, this is something that you hear in the black church a lot. Many are called, but few are chosen. And I felt like I was chosen, that they decided they were going to take me. They didn't have to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I did feel a sense of obligation. But more than that, they always told me that I was capable. So I just felt that I was capable and that I should do.
Toni, did you ever see your mom again?
Oh, yes. She became my oldest sister.
Really?
And
she came back to live there?
When I was about 8 years old, she came back to live in Utah. And my half-siblings are actually still there. And we kind of grew up together as I was their aunt. And they were my
what was it like to interact with your mother when it wasn't clear with that, that she didn't have that?
Because the grandmother adopted
was the authority,
her,
Well, she actually deferred all of the authority to my mother or to her mother. And so it was always clear that she took the role of being the big sister. There was never competition.
Oh.
Yeah.
And isn't it striking how many grandmothers are raising children in New Haven now?
There are a lot of them who are doing that, and it's just such a wonderful thing for them to do. It really is. It makes all the difference in the world. And I love to tell them that I want to support them, and I want their grandchildren to know that they can become, at the time, I would say, a state senator or a mayor, that there is really, your birth has nothing to do with what you accomplish.
That's so interesting, because at the same time, and I think we would all agree with that, at the same time you're in government, and so often you're called on to help those people who have been dealt a bad hand at birth.
Right.
And then that's kind of simultaneous messages you have to take on at the same time.